AI is integrated into even more work activities than ever before. And in some places, it's taking over or augmenting tasks of our teams. So it's important, and you'll hear from the panel today, that we're going to talk about how people can work closely with technology and machines to be even more impactful than ever. And our panel will address some of the common workplace challenges that they're seeing in these areas, as well as really what we can do to ensure that our teams are prepared for success with AI. So I'm going to have the panel start by introducing themselves, as well as if each of you could share a resource that's really inspired you to see the opportunity on this topic. So we will start with Mauricio. If you could briefly introduce yourself.
Thank you, Christine. My name is Mauricio Piñol. I am working with Dale Carnegie about 33 years, and I am so happy to be here because the human relation skills is right now the more important tools in the world. The human relations is the most important tool. This is one of the reasons that I'm here, because I am inspired the people to do that.
That's great. And do you have any resources that you leverage on a regular basis that you could share with this
absolutely
great group today?
We have, of course. Thank you, Christine, for your question. Right now we have the very good opportunity because the innovation and the tools technology is going to be much better for the people. And when we use that, it's going to be much better to know and to practice. Right now is the moment, because with the new tools, it's going to be much better human.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Lisa Palmer, could you introduce yourself and talk about resources you leverage?
Of course. So I'm Dr. Lisa Palmer. I am the founder and chief AI strategist for a boutique consulting firm called AI Leaders. And I work with executives and boards of directors, product leaders, go-to-market leaders to help them to identify opportunities for helping to leverage artificial intelligence in what I say is in partnership with AI. And some of the resources that I love are, one, there is a book that I am just a huge fan of. It's called Invisible Women, and it's written by a woman that Carolyn Criado Perez, who did her research for her PhD based around how women are not accounted for in data. And as we are approaching this just exploding time and period in history around AI, it's so important to look for those things that aren't in our data. So because they get left out when we use things like machine learning, we amplify whatever the results are of our data. So I'm wildly focused on what we are using to train our artificial intelligence tools. And then from a very practical perspective, I invite everyone to follow my blog. I write about topics that are specific to B2B applications of artificial intelligence. And I post very regularly on LinkedIn and interact with fantastic thought leaders in the AI space. So I encourage you to get involved in social, particularly LinkedIn, to have a current, modern, ongoing source of information.
Thanks so much. Maria Paula.
Hello, I'm Maria Paula. I'm in Bogota, Colombia. I work in Microsoft as sustainability lead. I use a lot of resources. I'm so excited and happy to be leading finally the era of AI, because I have been hearing about it for 10 years in my technology career. And honestly, 10 years ago, it sounds like something that maybe sometime, maybe it will happen. Now it's a reality. So I will recommend you a couple of resources. First, there is a great book that is The Intersect of AI, Ethical and Law, that is written by the president of Microsoft, that is Brad Smith. And it was written in 2019, and I was reading it this week again, and all the questions that he opened 4 years ago continue to be relevant in terms of how it's going to affect the workplace, how it's going to affect our practices, how it's going to change the responsible use of technology to enhance society. That's a good one. And I love a podcast that I believe the name is Knives and Forks from the New York Times, that is only for AI purposes, with a lot of leaders talking about the impact of AI. And it is actually the famous podcast of the guy that started chatting with ChatGPT, and ChatGPT got in love with him and started saying, you don't love your wife, you really love me. And that big discussion that opened up, but it's a great tool to hear practical uses and conflicts that you may have with ChatGPT. And of course, my number one resource is Bing, using the chat with the new AI. I use it every day. I test it every day. I use it for routinary tasks that I need to do, like to present myself. So I enter and say, hey, write me a presentation of Maria Paula as a speaker on women leadership. And it put me all my bio and put all the text. And it was a great way to really use and understand how to use and what are the limits of the use of a ChatGPT.
Thank you, Maria Paula. And Matt Norman.
Thank you, Christine. I lead the Dale Carnegie practice in the upper Midwest part of the United States. And I have a good friend who created a platform that learns all enterprise documentation and permissions access across the enterprise to anybody who may be searching for a PowerPoint presentation or searching for a proposal that they did 5 years ago for a client, or searching for some type of procedure manual. So often we lose track of all of the PowerPoints and proposals and documents that are created within an enterprise, especially large enterprises. And that can be found at lucy.ai. I just find that whole kind of training AI, generative AI platforms on private data sets, and then being able to permission them based on what's appropriate within the organization. And then like Maria, I listen to a handful of podcasts that I really appreciate. I really like the Lex Friedman podcast and the All In podcast. Those tend to be two podcasts that I learn a lot from, related to the advances in generative AI and this broader topic. I also try to synthesize that at mattnorman.com or on LinkedIn, as we're infusing our own thought leadership into the advances in AI.
Well, thank you all so much for those great introductions and resources. The question I get asked all the time is, how do I just learn? So I promise that our audience is going to get some great information from each of you today, but hopefully some of those resources are really useful to, as you go on with your day-to-day and incorporate AI into it. So, AI, as Chris mentioned, it's hitting the headlines, and in some cases it's optimistic, and in some cases it's scary, right? But we've dealt with technology and the disruptions it's caused for a long time in the workplace, and we've managed to get through them in many cases and have success stories about how these changes strengthened our teams. I mean, just think about it. We all just got through a pandemic and went from physical meetings to Zoom overnight, and we figured out how to be great leaders via Zoom and how to communicate via Zoom, and we survived, right? And in many cases have thrived. So for our group of panelists, what lessons can we take from those shifts to help inform our response today as it relates to AI? Who'd like to go first?
I can go.
Great, thanks, Maria.
I can go first. So I was thinking about it, Christine, because I believe we don't realize how as professionals have changed around technology. And I remember when I made my MBA, year 20,000, and no broadband. I still remember the sound of the phone when I was trying to connect to internet just to try to look for information. And I remember at that time, the most important attribute was how to really make the right questions to Google to find what you were looking for. Mm-hmm. And then it was not anymore how to ask, but how to filter the information that Google gives you. So you really need to learn to select the resources that you were going to use. And something similar is going to happen to AI. I read a sentence yesterday that was amazing for me. AI is not going to replace you. People that use AI will replace you. So we need to move faster. We need to learn faster. And it's not more about where to find the information, how to filter the information, but it will be more about how to analyze the information. So we as workers will need to fine-tune our ability to see how to put the information together, how to filter what information to use, but it will save you a lot of time. All of us all the time talk about work and life balance, and AI will, first of all, save you a lot of time in routinary tasks than someone else can do. Actually, a bot can do for you. And you will start giving that time to really think about your work, think about your business, think about your competencies, how to do things different. And on the other side, AI will build a culture of no excuses. I don't think if you have AI, you will be able to say to your boss, no, I didn't find that information. I mean, that will be the finish of that sentence in the corporate world. Or I didn't have time to write that proposal. Hey, you have ChatGPT. You need to know how to write that proposal. So that not excuse culture will challenge us in a different way, not for the use of technology, but how we really use the tools that we have in front to be more productive and to be more competent in our jobs.
Oh, very powerful, Maria. Thank you so much. Matt, do you have any thoughts you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, thanks, Maria, for those comments. I'm just reflecting as you're saying, you have no excuses for not having the answer. I'm thinking about when cell phones first became broadly distributed, you really had little excuse for not being available or being responsive. I'm raising teenagers, and so I think a lot about cell phones and the lessons that we've learned from cell phones. You know, obviously cell phones are an enormous productivity and connectivity tool, but they also have massive risk of addiction, bullying, and harmful content, as we all know, that is in your pocket. And so as we see, whether you're raising teenagers or trying to manage an enterprise, it's important that with cell phones, and as we'll see with AI, that we have thoughtful approaches to navigate AI, to govern AI, and to integrate AI in a way that is additive, like you said, Maria, and not harmful or destructive.
That's so important, Matt. Thank you. Yeah, I think about just how advanced our kids are and how they use these tools already, you know, and now as each of us are adopting them, really how we use it to create opportunity is key. How about Mauricio?
Well, I have a questions. The reason that I have my question is about the people said that we make 3 lights in 10 minutes because the people light because they have some problems, fear, the new resilience. But the problem for that is because we like for that, the artificial intelligence says, we don't like. I am the robot. I don't like. And I said, well, what's the problem? Because the interaction and the connection for us is going to be very difficult because the artificial intelligence says, I am not liar, I am pure. And I say to the customers, do you think that is true? We lie? And the people say, yeah, I like that. Yeah, I lied. And we have to change that. We have to make more connections. We have to make more very good communications. The information that we have to do it very well, because if we lie, we have some nervous, we have some problems. I don't want to work like this. If you have some fears, we have to change that. We have to do it different. We have to very trust the values, like Maria said. We have to read something about the values. And the connection with the human is going to be much better right now, because if the artificial intelligence is not lying, is the pure reason, we have to make difference because the owners of the company said, we don't have conflict. The conflict is go down. And that's the problem. And that's the reason that they can come here, make the white papers and said, you have to resilience, you have to be more agile, and you have to more intelligent, emotional intelligent, because the owners, they don't want the conflict. They want to resolve the conflict.
Yeah, thanks, Mauricio. A lot of the things we talk about at Dale Carnegie for a very long time, right, tie 100% to really teaching people how to embrace change and the tools to use to better communications and relationships between each other. Thank you. And Dr. Lisa.
So from my perspective, I like to encourage people to think back to the advent of electricity and what a shock it was to society to go from quite literally having your entire life revolve around daylight hours to being able to extend our work, extend our play, change the way that we interacted as a society every day as a result of the advent of electricity. But when electricity was new, there was a tremendous amount of fear around it. We didn't really know how to control it. We didn't know how to keep it from harming us, from electrocutions happening. We didn't know how to harness it in a way that would lead to better outcomes for each of us as individuals and overall for society. But what we learned is that we could do this. We could adapt. We could leverage electricity. And we could do so in a way that was safe. We could put guardrails around it. We could teach people the safe ways to interact with it. And it has forever impacted our lives, our quality of life, to have access to electricity. And I feel like it's such a great foundational way to think about what's going on with artificial intelligence today. Yes, it is already a game changer and is going to continue to be more and more so, just like the evolution of electricity was. We're going to continue to learn how to use it and wield it in partnership with AI, or in partnership with humanity, to drive better and better outcomes for us as a society. So just like our predecessors were brave in embracing that new technology and learning how to work with it and using our own creativity to place guardrails around it, we just need to take those lessons learned from history and apply them again today.
No, that's great. And, it really makes me think that a lot of these past evolutions have really improved us as humans, right? And more as professionals are saying, AI is changing our employees' jobs, right? I think a lot are really arguing that AI performs best as part of partnership with humans, rather than leaving AI or any technology to complete tasks or produce output without oversight. So Lisa, what do you think the most effective ways are for employees to work in partnership with AI to ensure it's meeting the needs of our organizations moving forward?
So I think the most practical, pragmatic way to get started with artificial intelligence is we have to interrupt our own daily activities, those things that we do almost out of muscle memory every day, those activities that we do over and over again. We have to stop ourselves and ask the question, how could I do this more effectively in partnership with AI? So you've got to interrupt your own processes and those things that have gotten to be very familiar and comfortable to you over the years, and ask yourself that question. So then pause and take a moment to learn a new way of doing things in partnership with artificial intelligence, and pick one tool. Start out with just one tool that you can begin to introduce into your daily habits and see the fantastic efficiency and partnership benefits that you gain back from simply challenging yourself to work a little bit differently each day. It's very low hanging fruit, very low resistance way to start to embrace change.
Yeah, I think that's so important, right? We each have the accountability ourselves to find out how our future evolves because of these great tools that are made available to us. And so many of us too lead teams, right? And we're asking ourselves, how can our organizations as leaders manage through change so that our employees are open to the shift and transform these new technologies? Think about productivity gains, how efficient they become, how empowered they become. So Matt and Mauricio, what of our soft skills or human skills are most important for employees to learn in order to effectively partner with AI?
Thank you. Well, the soft skills that I need is, first one is resilience. Second one is more agile, because like Lisa said, if you want to training, you want to make change, you want to stop, you have to more agile. If you don't do that, it's difficult because you learn something else. It's changed to every day. For example, here right now, to change everything. And then the emotional intelligence is very important, that because the people that hear us, the most important is, I know in knowledge, I use the tool, but my connection, my human relations is better. My little daughter, they received the training with a robot. The robot speaks 6 languages in the same time. And I said, do you like that robot? And she told me, yeah, I like that because they don't have preferred alums. It's plain. They have knowledge. And I said, the connection and the emotionals? The emotional is with my friends. In the works, in the companies, it's the same. You need the human relation, the connections, the golden book from Dale Carnegie, the principles from Dale Carnegie. Right now, this is very important because like Lisa is okay, perfect, absolutely. But don't forget the human relations. And for example, interest, respect, help, something like that, Christine. It's very important to use it that because it's not only the technology, it's the human factor is very important.
Yeah, I would just build on that. Thanks, Mauricio. For leaders who are trying to change and evolve their organizations through innovation and technology, we find that one of the keys is that those leaders have strong trust with their teams, that their teams trust that they will take them in a more positive direction. And we recently, as an organization, conducted a global survey that showed that one of the things that employees want in the face of technological innovation, 68% of people surveyed said they wanted additional training to avoid risk of losing their job or being out, being automated. And 3 specific areas that type of training could occur is just to amplify what Mauricio said. Mauricio just named those 3: resilience, agility, and emotional social intelligence. And so those 3 things the more we develop those things, can build trust in the organization and can help to differentiate people to be able to have effective human-machine partnerships as opposed to being at risk of being automated or marginalized in their role.
Yeah, that's great, Matt. And just to really build on your last on your last response, right? Really what you're talking about is how do our employees create a competitive advantage, right, in the workplace because of AI and the really the resource that it's given them to be a stronger employee. So how does emotional and social intelligence give employees a competitive advantage in the workplace over AI? And Matt, how can companies recognize, reward, and foster these skills so employees can effectively partner with AI tools and platforms?
Yeah, I'm thinking about a recent client that I worked with, and Lisa, I know that you also have a number of clients that you work with along these lines, so I'll turn it over to you here in a moment. But I'm thinking about a client that I was with last week. They are a call center, and in a day-long session that we facilitated with this call center, I saw people were laughing, they were crying, they were encouraging each other, they were inspiring each other, they were caring about each other. And those are human attributes. Those are human characteristics, to be emotive and reflective and connective. And as a result, this organization is investing time and resources in developing those things, in developing the humanity and the human relations skills, as Mauricio was saying, of their team members. In fact, the CEO of this company was in the room and publicly declared his vision and value around the development of these skills in emotional and social intelligence, and wanting to promote people in the organization who were able to demonstrate emotional and social intelligence. And so I think that was just an example last week of how, what distinguishes human beings from machines. That is the emotional social intelligence. And this was an example of an organization that was making a time and financial investment on part of the executive team of the organization to declare this is part of our vision, this is part of our values, and we will be rewarding and advancing people in the organization that can demonstrate these skills and abilities. Please go ahead, Mauricio. Yeah.
And it's very important because the leadership right now, he has a very big responsibility for the team. Because you said that if I trust in my leader, I feel more comfortable. But if I don't trust, it's difficult. And the people and the young people, they work a little time in the company and they go to another company. And I said, why do you go to another company? Because my leader, because the company is not evolutions, we don't pay too much, something like that. When I am younger and I work with Maria, something like that, we work with one company. Well, I worked with Dale Carnegie 33 years, but the young people, they said, I want to change something because I don't trust in my leader. If we have some people here that I am leader, right now my responsibility to communication, the innovation is much important right now, because if we don't do well, the people said, I'm going to change. The leadership right now has a very, very, very responsibility for that.
I want to add on that, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I believe that there is another soft skill that will be determinant, and it's show vulnerability. As leaders, we don't need to know it all. We need our people to do it and maybe train us in how to use the new technology. We have a lot of young people in our teams. We cannot stand in front of them and trying to apparent to be the one that knows about AI, guys, because I have a news for you. They know more than you know about AI. And if you're not allowed them to use it in your office, they are using it, I'm certain, on their private life. So the power of vulnerability, the ability to say, I don't know, let's try it. Let's open the conversation. Let's try to foster an environment in which we can do the right questions about how to use AI. And that's a change in the leader. Remember 10 years ago when I was working in Microsoft as enterprise lead, I was to the president and CEOs of the companies trying to convince them to allow remote work. And I spent hours of my time trying to let them know that people will embrace to work from home. And then comes the pandemic, and in 1 week, they need to accept what they were reluctant of because they didn't like remote work. And now they are wondering, does remote work is gonna be the new way of working? And the same is going to happen with AI. We cannot apparent to say, okay, I know a lot. No, it's just put in the right people, find the people that love technology, find the people that really like the tool, and allow them to foster innovation in the organization. And we as leaders can just become like the facilitator of a big transformation based on the knowledge that they have in their normal life, in the use of the right tools, in the use of technology.
That's great. Thank you. And I think, when Matt started, Lisa, he also thought that you may have a great perspective on this one as well.
So I think that we're seeing a great learning curve happen in the marketplace, because we have to remember that leaders are going through this learning curve right along with everyone that is doing this from a personal perspective as they're working to learn and change their own approach and their own careers as well. So the upskilling is happening everywhere from boards of directors to your executive teams, your mid-level managers, all the way down to our front lines employees. And we're all learning together. Some are learning faster than others because they're really investing in what does that look like. And so those leaders that are really stepping forward and being the ones that are moving us towards a modern workplace, they're asking these questions about their culture and what is the culture that we need to create that will allow us to embrace and maximize the power of our workforce in partnership with artificial intelligence. And something that is critical in that perspective is that you have to have highly interactive groups. If you work in a siloed culture, if you live and if you're care and feeding a siloed culture as leaders, I want to challenge you today to begin to break down those walls, drive towards highly interactive, collaborative teaming, because in the world of artificial intelligence, you must have diversity of perspectives, diversity of experiences, of cultural backgrounds, etc. You must have those differences at the table, involved in your projects. helping you to move your organization forward. If you don't have that, if you lack that truly interactive, highly collaborative environment, you will struggle in the AI-fueled world. So that's my challenge to leaders, is look for those that are really leading with that modern approach and focus on what you can do from a cultural perspective and from an empowerment perspective to get the very best out of your workforce being fueled by AI.
Yeah, I think that's so important, right? The culture really needs to create an atmosphere that encourages the collaboration and the use across teams. And I think we all benefit more, right, from that more integrated collaborative approach. You know, so going to shift the question a little bit for a second. We're talking about all the great things that AI and technology can do for individuals and teams, but we also know there are some limitations that we have to be careful about. So Mauricio and Maria Paula, what are some of those limitations of AI that companies should bear in mind when implementing projects? And how might these implications impact corporate culture and employee engagement?
You want to go, Mauricio?
Go ahead,
Okay.
Maria.
So I think the first one is to decide what kind of information are you going to use to train your bots or to train your models, and where are you going to put that information? Because if you're on the ChatGPT environment, you're in a public environment, and you need to be conscious of that. So every document of your private document that you put there is going to be somehow used by external people. So privacy of the information, I believe, is a key part of what you need to take into account. Of course, the intellectual property right also arises as a new question that you need to take into account, especially in companies that live or are based on intellectual property. What kind of information am I going to put there? I think it's important that if you have values as a company, you think about how you will translate those values into the AI use. So if you, I don't know, if you work on transparency, you need to be transparent when you're using AI. For example, I'm a huge fan of a letter that the Financial Times editor sent like 2 months ago to the readers saying, we are going to use AI, we are going to produce content based on AI, and we are going to let you know when that content is provided by AI. And I think that's transparency. I mean, you can do the same with your customers. You can say, this chatbot is being used with an AI motor. You are actually using AI. So you, as user, customer, can know what is the environment in which you are working. And of course, I believe that a bottom-up approach is more important for innovation than a top-down. So if you like seat the AI around the organization and open the door for different groups, like Lisa was saying, to test AI, to think of your business, of how to enhance your business through AI, you can create channels to put the people together and answer the questions and create the channels for the organization to raise the question of what is going on with AI. Are we going to use it for this purpose or this other purpose? And that will foster not only the collaborative environment that you were referring to, but the construction of a culture based on principles of responsible AI. There is one that I was rereading in this book that I mentioned to you before, and it's AI should not be in control of any kind of decision that could be harmful for the human being. And I believe this is important, to put limits as well. I mean, we're not gonna cross certain limits. Which one, I don't know, depends on the company. But if that decision takes impact or create any kind of harm from a human being, that decision cannot be made in any case by AI or by a bot itself.
Well, Maria, you said you are absolutely right about that, because you put the human values in the artificial intelligence and align that. Because if we don't align the human and the innovation, it's difficult to do that. For example, I make questions about some people's, and I said, please give me a list that how skills do you want to process or you need for your job? And then I asked the same question for the leader, and it's different. The leader told me, they have a different skills. And I said, no, they think that is a very good skills. And you think that is not a very good skills. The first, you have to align the needs. If you have to align the needs about my needs and what do you think about my needs, then I have to use the tools for innovation. And I said, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I want to use it. It's incredible, Maria, because you said excellent ideas, because if we don't align, it's difficult because we make the culture. We don't align. We don't have the values. We don't have the principles. We change all the time. It's difficult. Only with one question. What do you need? And what do you think that I need? Is different. 7% is different. And I said, why different? It's incredible that we have to align the needs, and then we have to use the tools to be much agile, to make us better.
Great, thank you. And I'm sure one of the questions we're seeing a little bit come through the question and answer, but one of the things that I think is on top of a lot of our audience's mind is, where do I start, right? How do I start taking advantage of some of the opportunities that come out of AI inside of my organization? So Maria, one of those areas might be productivity. And what are the benefits of AI completing and automating tasks or augmenting tasks when they work in partnership with employees to increase productivity?
I just love it. I mean, I cannot imagine myself working in a company that doesn't have any AI tool to enhance my productivity nowadays. Of course, I know that I'm a privilege because I work in Microsoft and I have a lot of different tools, but I have something that we call Copilot. And it's so easy to use that I have it embedded in PowerPoint. I need to make presentations in Portuguese for Brazil. And before that, I spent, let's say, 1 hour and a half traducing the presentation from English to Portuguese. Now I enter, I say, Copilot, please traduce this presentation into Portuguese from Brazil. And I got the presentation back, I don't know, like in 3 minutes, completely translate. And my work becomes 20 minutes of reviewing if the context of what I'm gonna say, it's okay. When I'm actually writing an email in Outlook, and I did that last week, I have to send a mail to someone from Lavazza in Italy, and Copilot actually say, you're writing to Lavazza. Lavazza is a customer that we have in our CRM. Do you want me to put you the proposal for Lavazza? And I say, yes, and it made me 3 questions. Do you want the proposal on sustainability? Do you want the proposal on agriculture? Or do you want me to replay the previous email thread that you have with Lavazza? And I say, let's test it easily first, the email. And it returned to me a complete email with all the information, I don't know, in 25 seconds. It saved me so much time to do the right things. And this is a conversation that I had with the CEO of a bank in Colombia that are actually using a lot of bots. And I love how he explained to his employees why bots are important, because he said to them, I'm not robotizing you by adapting AI. I'm on-robotizing you because you were using or doing routinary tasks that can be made by a robot. And now you're going to be thinking about the result of that information and how to produce business outcomes that a robot will never be able to give me because it does not have the ability of putting the content, the task, and the context together to produce new business outcomes.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to ask Lisa one more question. And obviously, I thank the entire panel for their tremendous insight and answers to questions. So I'll invite each of you to answer this as well, if you'd like. We've gotten a lot of questions, so we're going to leave 15 minutes for questions for the end. But before we go, we know that humans are creatures of emotion. Right. So while we're giving all the tips and the tools to be successful using AI, there is this component that AI technology can make some employees feel threatened that they could be replaced by machines or their job becomes completely automated. So, while there's been so much great advice today on culturally how to move around those things, Lisa and the rest of the panel, what's the first thing organizations can do to address these fears and give our teams the confidence to use this technology to really empower them stronger?
The very first component is education. And as leaders, you must educate yourself so that you aren't fearful. your fear will translate into the way that you approach and engage with these topics if you don't address your own learning curve first. So please invest in your own education as leaders. Then be really transparent. Just be completely transparent about what you know and what you don't know, what you are learning as you go along, and remind your workforce that they are valuable. They are what they are going to be the core. They are central to you going through this next evolution. We've been through evolutions many times due to technology disruption in the past. This has the same markers as those types of disruption before. So remind them how critical they were when you have previously gone through disruptions, and help them to understand that you're invested in upskilling them as they see productivity improvements to their jobs. That frees them up to do higher level, more interesting work that you may have wanted them to do, or even been challenging them to do for a long time, and they simply haven't had the bandwidth to do it. So there's so much opportunity here, but in order to manage those fears, we have to deal with our own. We have to educate ourselves, educate our staff, educate our partners, really work together to allay these fears by being completely transparent and giving pilot processes and pilot programs that allow people to firsthand experience the power of these tools and the positive impacts that it creates on their jobs.
Lisa, it's very good because I hear something about the inverted mentoring. It's the different. Please, the leader, we have to open their mind, listen, because the young people, they have the tools, they have the agility. We don't have everything. We don't know everything. And Lisa said it's okay, education, but the mentoring is going to change. It's not me, the leader, to the people, it's the people to me. When we do that, the pandemic in Dale Carnegie, my young people, my young trainers tell me, we have to do this. We have to change this. We have to go to that way. We have to open that, because we are not only the leadership to know everything. Right now is the inverted mentoring. Ask with your people. Ask, what can I do? What do you think about it? Do you hear something? Please, we have to make a very good listen and knowledge about the people.
Yeah, thanks, Mauricio. I think the biggest barrier that I see with clients making advancements in AI or technology, broadly speaking, is that they don't perceive they have the time. There's not enough time to learn this. There's not enough time to experiment. There's not enough time to innovate because I'm too busy working on today's tasks. And so I think we have to give gifts to our future selves. We have to make time. And I think as leaders, one thing we can do is create space, create time, or reward time. Maybe we even require time. One organization in Minnesota, where I live, has every Friday, they mandate time for innovation and forward-looking experimentation. Maybe that's something we need to consider as a leader of a team or of an organization, is that we create time and space to give gifts to our future selves and not just only focus on today's requirements.
I want to add that I love a book of Dale Carnegie that is called Stop Worrying and Start Living. And in times of transition, our mind always raises the fears, as Dr. Lisa was saying, and all the things that could go wrong. And I think we need to create culture and people that embrace change, that embrace and understand that change is here to stay, that unless you prepare yourself as a human being that wants to remain relevant in the workforce, you're going to be out by other people that really embrace change. And we also have the Fridays, Matt. We have two Fridays a month to dedicate to study and take all the courses. And of course, you have all different kind of resources, technical, practical, whatever. but you need to take care of your competitiveness yourself. You need to take time to study, because I cannot get into a customer meeting. I work in sustainability, and I cannot tell you this year, every meeting that I have with a CEO or with a board start with the questions around AI, because AI is going to be on the ESG, on the governance pillar. How is going to raise AI concerns about the governance of companies? And I usually say, instead of concerns, it's going to create opportunities. Now you're going to build rapidly your risk map. You're going to be more clear about the risk that you have in the management of your resources. You're going to detect more rapidly fraud. And the same happened with environment. With AI, we're going to be able to manage tons and thousands of data that people were doing into Excel's data sheet to be able to measure the carbon footprint and the environmental footprint. Now they can do that in the snap of a finger and start wondering, what can I do different to reduce this, instead of just collecting data and putting data and making calculations that nobody are going to look at. So stop worrying and start living. We need to understand that we are living in a different world, and we cannot forget that AI was developed by humans like us. It was not out of the blue. There is human behind that. There is human brains that actually were able, through their creativity, to put the pieces together to allow us to improve our daily life with tools that make us more productive.
Well, thank you all so much. This was such an insightful and collaborative conversation. So, thank you to all of our panelists. And we have a number of questions from our guests. Some of the questions have been answered by our panelists, so they've been multitasking. So thank you. But the first one I'm going to ask is from Jonathan. There's a story in the New York Times about AI-generated travel books being sold that are filled with errors and incorrect information. How do we sort through the wrong info so that the answers we get are the correct answers? Whoever on the panel would like to answer that would be great.
I'll jump in here first. One of the things I would like to encourage people to do is to make sure that you are doing proper research, just like with anything else that we read in the news. I think for a long time now, we have had to dig a little bit deeper. You can't believe every story you read in the news without understanding more of the perspective that it was written from. And the same applies when you're getting information back from these large language models. This is where human intuition, human creativity, human research, the cognitive application of research ideologies really comes to bear, because we can't just simply do whatever these models tell us to do or blindly follow what has been written. You need to at least look for what are the sources of that document and go check to make sure that those sources actually exist. As we know, there was an example of an attorney who actually was sanctioned by the courts because he used ChatGPT to write a legal argument for him, and it made up the cases that didn't exist. So had he simply asked for the links to the sources of that information of those cases, he would have quickly realized that they don't exist. So challenge yourself to make sure that you're applying your own human intellect to look at these things a little bit closer. Make sure that you are doing your own research and don't just wholeheartedly swallow whatever these models kick out for us.
Very important, great guidance. Maria, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, one thing that we all need to learn is something called prompt engineering, and it's how to make the right questions to AI. So you need to be precise. You need to be more clear of what you're looking for. So it will be like, where do I can go in my next vacations? No, you need to start asking like, I want a recommendation of what is the place with beach and temperatures about 28 degrees to go on vacation. Surely gonna be Cartagena in Colombia, but that's just an example. Prompt engineering will be key, because depending on how you ask, the response is gonna be made. And it's important that we really learn to interact in the good way. The second is, as Dr. Lisa was saying, check the sources. Fortunately, they give you the sources, but I want to put your minds back into Wikipedia when it starts. And please go back and remember that all of us, we said like, no, I don't use Wikipedia because information is not enough accurate. 5 years after Wikipedia was in the market, they make a study between Wikipedia and the British Encyclopedia. And the difference in mistakes was higher in the British Encyclopedia than in Wikipedia, because there is a principle called the wisdom of the crowds. As the crowd put more information, as the crowd entered more information, edited more information, the crowd itself is gonna become the editor of the bot of the AI. So we also need to wait a little bit until we'll get to the tipping point in which it's gonna even start questioning if there is a false information or a real information, and that's surely gonna happen because it will start saying maybe fake news, maybe false information, but the risk of that providing bad information is the same risk that you can have if you try yourself to do a research and you make a mistake. So we really, as Mauricio was saying, trust not only in the leaders, we need to trust the tool and find the mistakes in the tool, but really learn to use it with a critical mind to test the information and understand that will be taking a little time until it's perfect, but the time will come and we will use it with trust, with the ability to trust on the content.
That's awesome. Thank you, Maria. All right, I think we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. So I'm going to jump to question number 2 from Morgan. Our division in our organization consists mostly of blue collar workers, a team of over 100 people, such as maintenance, carpenters, painters, and mail services. Any tips for how blue collar workers can use AI?
I jumped in and responded to this in text, but I will, this is near to my heart. I actually have a son who founded his own construction company and have enjoyed his journey in helping him to see areas where he can use these large language models where it wasn't obvious in the beginning. So think about things like your ability to identify if you have somebody that is new to a particular role, or you may have someone on your team who has to be a jack of all trades. And so they have very broad depth, or broad understanding, but they don't have a lot of depth in certain areas of those tasks. You can use it, different types of AI as learning mechanisms to give you ideas of things that you can try, problems you can solve. You can ask it to build you a step-by-step guide of what to do if you encounter a certain problem. You have the opportunity to use it to educate people about safety protocols. What are ways that you should and shouldn't behave to make sure that you remain ergonomically safe, that you remain physically safe in these environments. You can use it. There's a great tool called Perplexity AI that allows you to take any concept or action that you're working on, and it is designed specifically to educate in simple terms about things that you haven't done before, don't know how to do. You have the ability to use it for time management, for scheduling. So you can just simply type in, here are the parameters, here are all the things we know about this project, and there are a bunch of things we don't know. Build out a basic timeline for me about how long this should take. And it'll build out a timeline for those kinds of blue collar activities. So there are actually many different applications for use of these tools in traditionally blue collar environments.
Well, that's great, Lisa. Thank you so much. All right. And our last question, I'm sorry, there have been so many questions, just being mindful of everybody's busy schedules. I'm sure our guests all have their next meeting to move on to. But the final question is, from an equity point of view, how can we overcome the inherent bias in the data?
You have to put unbiased information into the database that you're going to use for training the bot, and you're going to make unbiased questions to the bot as well. As Dr. Lisa was saying, that book, I forgot the name now, The Invisible Woman, show you how if you make the wrong question, like for example, I'm looking for engineers. In English is more difficult to explain, but in Spanish there is a word for men engineers or female engineers. If you put men engineers, the database, or just engineers with the male attribute, it will send you all curriculum vitae on men, and you will gonna be leaving women aside. So you need to be sure that you have data, the data that is the source of the AI need to be unbiased. The same with private information, financial information, ethical information, religious information, democratic. And then when you make the question, you need to be sure that you're using an unbiased question, that it's really open to find different sources of information, not just the one that you were asking in your bias question.
Great advice.
Well, thank you again to all of our guests and to our amazing panel. I've learned a ton just in the last hour listening to each of you, and I've learned a ton too from the questions that we've received. As Chris mentioned at the beginning of the call, each person that's registered will receive an email targeting tomorrow with a lot of the resources discussed on this call today. Along with links and a recording so that you can reference back. We really, really, really appreciate the time you took to listen to our panel of experts today. They each shared a reference for how you can follow them or keep in contact with them. And there's a ton of resources available to you on dalecarnegie.com as well. So please, any questions, reach out to a Dale Carnegie representative, and we'll be sure to help you the best we can with any of your needs related to AI, or really how we can help arm your workforce with the great tools and skills that we empower professionals and individuals with every day. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.